Hello, welcome to another Random Code stream. I am going to be working in this stream a little bit on this issue, maybe another one. This is in a library that I've had for a long time called Spackle. It's basically just a utility library that has a couple things in it that I found useful here and there throughout the years, and I've just kind of kept it updated over time. It doesn't have a lot in it, and it's kind of a random grab bag of stuff people usually make. That's why I call it Spackle, because it just fills in the holes in the wall. So let me get my music going in the background here. I'm going to do the rest of Random.Code offline if I get to it at all. I didn't want to spend more streams just struggling trying to get stuff to work. So at this point, I'm kind of like, there's probably like 2 or 3 parts that I'm going to do. And then the other 2, maybe. There's 2 that I'm just like, I have no idea where to even start. So I know what the problem is. I just don't know how to solve it efficiently, which is important. So my wife and I are going to be leaving for a 2-day trip this afternoon. So I figured, you know what, I'm just going to do something kind of relaxing, work on updating the library for .NET 10. And then, ironically, I was looking through the issues. This was funny. And I already had an issue here for indices. And actually, it's not indexes. It's indices. I looked that up. That's the plural. So, it's not indexes. It's indices. So, but I already had one here. And I had the debate in my head of if you find this ABC, are you finding it using just that and then starting over, or do you allow overlaps? And actually, now that I'm here, maybe provide an optional argument like index search, like an index search enum. Hey guy. Vanilla ice. Jeez. With unique or overlap, something like that. And then you could define which one you want to do, and it would probably default to unique. Now for a char, it wouldn't do that because a char would just be one character, so it'd be unique values. But if you're using a string, then it's possible you could find overlaps. Like if you had just all A's and you're trying to find 2 A's, do you want to find the unique source? So the thing is, I already had an issue here for it, so it's kind of funny. So there's a couple things in the 14.0 milestone that I want to do. And the first thing is to clean up the repository so that it's doing some things that I think are a little bit more modern for libraries. And so while this is just a cleanup, this goes through some stuff that I think is somewhat important. And I'm going to have rocks up here because that's kind of my go-to template for a repository to follow of what I want to have and where to put stuff. So if we go back here. All right. Yeah. So I already have a branch made. So let's go to repos, Spackle. And what I want to have is new folder, src. Okay. Oh, I already changed it to SNLX. Good. That was on the list, and I wanted to make sure that was not there anymore. So rocks. Wait, no. I want to have So we get up to, so we're going to move editor config into source. We're going to keep the changelog there. We're going to move this. Do we keep the icon? I forget where we put the icon. Maybe in source. Is that where we put the icon? Or do we use images? Oh, we used images. Okay. Well, we're going to do that too. And then we'll put the icon there, and then we're going to have to remember to make the path in the CSproj file correct. Okay, we have the license, we have the README, and then this has to, whoa, not all of that. Okay, good thing I already have the Spackle thing, the solution file there. So we're going to move that actual code into here. And then bin and obj are going to go away. No, not that. Okay, so the build props 2026. I'm going to start doing that. I don't even know why I have that there. I'm not even a lawyer. I have no idea. What do we want to put for the directory build props file? I mean, it's interesting. I show this to people sometimes when I'm doing talks, like, do you know that there's a new solution file format? Do you know that there's this thing called directory build props? Do you know that there's this file called that you can do this thing called central package management? Do you know that there's this thing with artifacts? And a lot of people are just like, no, I have no idea about this stuff. And I'm kind of like, you should, because I think it's actually very helpful. Yeah, so we want to have managed package versions. Oh, we do. Oh, we already have okay, that's good. Some of these things I didn't know if we already had. Artifacts output, though, we do not have. Maybe we put those in here too. NuGet. Okay, so we got that. So we know we did package management, we restructured. Do we have a docs, we have notes. Okay. So I got that in there. We have an SLNX. I think we did everything. The one thing though is actually opening this up. Typically moving to a new version of something may require updating packages. It may also require updating the test project too. I forgot about that. Yeah, we're using NUnit, which is fine. I like NUnit, don't get me wrong. But it's had some interesting things moving to .NET 10 and what do I want to call it? Microsoft Testing Platform. We don't need this anymore. We don't need the source link GitHub anymore. That I know. And so I think here, oh, we don't even reference it anymore. That's interesting. The package icon. Oh, right. So we want to go up a folder and then images. Okay. But is that true? So for here, we want to go to source. We want to go up to, right? Yeah, I think we need to go up to. Okay. I don't know why I called it Spackle.net. Why I just didn't call it Spackle. It's my repository. That's an odd one. It's something I probably should change in the future, but because the package is actually called, it's just Spackle, so whatever. Whatever. Okay, so I think that should all be good. So now if we say okay, so does everything build? Does everything test? Good. That's good. But let's look to see, because a lot of time, yeah, see, like with the end unit stuff here, when you upgrade to a new version, you sometimes get some nice little improvement things. Like this. It's not a big deal. But it's kind of nice. Okay. And then all these. Use assert enter multiple scope. So you can say in project, let's do that. Now the problem is in doing that is that things get a little out of whack by doing that, but we should be able to see in a desktop. Well, all these have been moved, so look in current project. No. Yeah, okay. So that's the one that we were in. Let's go to exception. Because I want to reformat all these. Because otherwise they look wonky. Wait. Okay, wait. Okay, that should be it. All right. Easy. So this actually went a lot faster than I thought it would, which is good. Wait, I thought I got all those. Okay. Yeah, so we want to change if you had a 0 to B is 0. Okay. Any more? Use unbounded type. Oh. Did they change that? I wonder if there was a small feature that got... Because you've always had to put in, and I thought I remember reading at some point that they were going to change that so that you didn't have to have a closed generic to use name of on something. So that's kind of nice. All right. Anything else that is coming up? No, so let's commit this and say lots of restructuring and updating. Okay. And then let's go look at the NuGet packages. And let's see what we have for updates. Probably update them all, because why not? Okay. So let's do a clean, rebuild. All pass, git commit. Oh, I should have put the number in there. Updated NuGet packages. Okay, the last thing I want to do before I move on to another issue is I want to look again in rocks with, doesn't really matter. Maybe that was the problem. And unit, Microsoft, testing, platform. Good. Jeez. Maybe I didn't have output type set to exe, and that might have been a problem. But let's try it. Now, I'm actually going to shut down Visual Studio and start up again. And yep. It's the same thing I saw my eyes. Yeah, I know. There's add-ins I know that you can do for web browsers that will automatically make everything dark mode on any page you go to. So actually, let me try something here real quick. We are doing include pre-release. Yeah, that's still not... Which one did I find that I was trying to do some tests and it just was not working? And unit issues, because I know I put it in as an issue. How can you find out where you can, like, where you've made issues? Maybe you look at my activity. Yeah. Well, this is the one I made, but that was from a while ago. I want to see one that because I added a comment to something. Is it here? Easy. Maybe it's not in unit. Maybe it's... It's just in unit. No, that's... Damn it. Huh. Well, there was one that... Oh, was it having a code itself? No, not issues. Source. Yeah. Okay. It is. It is this one. Okay. Thanks, Brain. You're welcome. We need to actually reference these two packages directly. I don't know why. It's something with the setup in NUnit that it's just, and I mentioned this somewhere in NUnit that's like it's just not referencing these correctly when you do central package management. And so then if you reference these and you go back here and you go to tests and you put those in directly, now it works. So go figure. I don't know. I don't know why. It shouldn't have to do these two, from what they said, because something in their package should have these referenced already. But if I don't have them in there, it doesn't work. So, and I tried TUnit. I had some initial overall liking with it, but I don't like it. The thing I don't like about TUnit is that all its assertions are all asynchronous, which I think is a mistake. There's issues with doing that, and I think valid issues with doing that. And when the author of the framework said we could just use a different assertion library, I'm like, that's kind of missing the point. In my mind, a testing framework should have its own assertion API. It's not just about, you can separate them out if you want, and you can also make it so that a user can choose their own assertions if they want, their assertion framework. That's fine. But I think a testing framework should provide both theirs. There's no point in having a test framework if you can't do assertions. And to say, I'm going to punt and say, if you don't like this one, just use another one. I'm kind of like, I don't particularly care for that. So I appreciate the author's work that they've done in TUnit. I think there's a lot of good things to say about it. But that one thing just, I can't get past it. It's just not thing for me. So I'm sticking with NUnit. So, or I could just write my own, which would be kind of silly. But then again, I wrote my own mocking framework, which is what it is. That is something I want to mention again, because I said it in a previous stream. But there's been, let me get to there's been some interesting, well, let me say it this way. There are other mocking frameworks that have been created over the last 4 or 5 years that use source generation, which is fine. A decent amount of them haven't had a lot of work put into them. One was just posted that I saw in a Reddit channel. It's called Imposter, and it makes the claim of being like the fastest and most efficient with memory allocation mocking libraries out there. And I went, oh, okay, well, let's just see how efficient it is. And to be fair, it is, but not as much as Rocks. So if you look at Rocks and Imposter, and to be clear, I'm not putting down people putting in, good work and making best efforts. I'm totally fine with that. Absolutely fine with that. And yes, compared to the other frameworks, it's definitely less in most cases. But again, Rocks still, like in this case, is almost an order of magnitude less memory consumption than Imposter. And here it's like almost an order of, well, that's pushing it, but it's definitely like, 3-4 times faster, and like an order of magnitude or even 2 in some cases with just Mocklite. So I put this out there as kind of like, well, because to me, it's for good, bad, or indifferent. It's a source of pride with me, with anything I do, but especially with Rocks, is that I have spent I think out of any framework that I've ever made, any package I've ever made, anything I've ever done in my career, this has had the most work put into it. And I have a sense of pride with that. And so if somebody makes something that's going to be faster or less memory, I'm going to be definitely all over that and figuring out how can I improve Rocks to make it even better. So, I don't look at it as somebody being evil or bad because they're trying to challenge it. I look at it as friendly competition, and a high tide raises all boats or something, whatever that phrase is. And that's the way I look at it, is it would motivate me to make something to work even better. So yeah, had to throw that out there again. All right, I think I've done everything I can possibly do for .NET 10. It all seems to work. We should have an artifacts directory now. Yep. So everything's put in artifacts. We should have a package 14.0. So we're all good. All right, so I'm gonna close this one out, and then I think I'm gonna start working on another issue for a little bit. And if I don't get through it all, that's fine. But I do want to work through that issue. So let's go to manage branches. Let's push that into there. Why did you do that? Push. All right, so main has that now. We can get rid of this branch. Get rid of that branch. And then we can close this issue. All right, well, I got one thing done, so that's good. Here's another one. This one should be somewhat simpler, but I found this when I'm doing Advent of Code, and I guess that's one thing that's interesting about Advent of Code is that it sometimes has driven me to update Spackle for what I think would be valid reasons. One of the problems that I did in Advent of Code, I used the range. I forget which one it was, but it made it so much simpler to solve the problem by having that utility type. And it's a type I made, so I kind of went, well, it's okay for me to, use this. I was like, I'm going to use anything that's within the .NET runtime in the language. But this one was something that I've already created, so I'm like, no, I'm going to use that too. So, but this is one that I've seen for hash set. I don't know how far I'm going to go with this in terms of would I do this for other types. I have noticed with hash set that it does not have an add range, which is kind of annoying. So if you have, let's see if I can just dive into a file here that doesn't really matter. So if I have var x is equal to new hash set of string, doesn't matter, x.add. There is no adds or add range. Whereas if you have like a list, x.add range, does a dictionary? I have a dictionary string and string, x.add range. It does not either. But you see, because I'm referencing Spackle, I have an add pairs. And so if you have a dictionary of pairs, you'll add those pairs to that. I didn't call it add range, but I called it add pairs. I don't know why. There, back to normal. So I already have that for dictionary. Does things like var values is equal to mutable array. I don't care if it's an object. Values.add range. Yes, it does. Do we have it for mutable dictionary? String and string, which of course values.add range. See, there's a range there. That's funny. So, but we don't have one for hash set. And this also, I think, will do a little bit of cleanup to do the new extension syntax, because we have some extension methods. So we're going to go through all these and change them to use the new extension way of things. You'll see what I mean in a moment. So let's do this one. Why not? Git new branch. Okay. So what we're going to want is hash set of T extensions. This is a new way I want to try to name files too that have, they're generics, but you can't put a left bracket or right bracket into, I'm sorry, left greater than less than signs, those things. You can't put those in file names, but you can put the curly braces. So I've seen people do this for files that you're trying to say this is for a generic, and it looks a little odd, but I kind of like it. I kind of like the way I personally like it. Other people may not, but you know. The one thing it does do is it makes this the file name itself a little weird. Right? So yeah, I think this is a bug. The CA1034, if I remember right, doesn't know how to handle this new extension syntax, and it gets confused. So so I think we just need to say CA1034 and put that in here. No warn. CA1034. And then that should go away. Yep. This, talk about yak shaving here. This is also bringing up an interesting point. Does the type, because the extension is generic in and of itself, so do we make the file name generic? Because we can't do that trick with the curly braces here. That's not a valid name. We could say iDictionary extensions, and then the extension itself is generic. There's technically still a iDictionary type out there. This is from, well, maybe there isn't. So how would you name the type? Would you say of? And saying it was of T is wrong, because it's dictionary is not of T. It's of two things, of T key, T value. This is something I struggled with in Rocks, with trying to name files that have generics in them. Because this of thing really annoys me. And what happens, because if you have a generic type that is one type parameter, and another generic type that is the same name but two generic types, how do you differentiate between the two? But with this new extension syntax, you could, by having them all within here, like the one for the two here. So I don't know, maybe... I don't know, man. Maybe we just call this iDictionary extensions. And we leave this just to be hash set extensions. Whoops. Or just ask ChatGPT to come up with the answer. Which honestly wouldn't be an unbelievably terrible idea. I have used it in the past just to say, hey, what would you name this? And sometimes it at least gives me something to mull over. Okay, well, let's go through all the types and do some renaming. Well, that's interesting. It doesn't understand self here. It doesn't think that there's a parameter now. Huh. Part of the reason I like doing these is because it gives me an excuse to keep updating libraries for new things and to go, well, wait a minute. how does this work now? Like, was the actual original way of doing it better? I don't know. In this case, I'm kind of like the fact that the extension, using that new extension syntax, doesn't understand that there's still a parameter in play. And I bet the XML comments don't even know how to do anything on the extension syntax itself. So again, there seems to be a situation here where something, with these analyzers aren't quite up to snuff. By the way, before I forget, I thought when I was looking up the help for this, that there was a spelling mistake. I should have written it down. Yeah, here. Iwith. There. I just remembered that. So that's an interesting case here. What do we do with that? I don't know. Yeah, because suddenly all the selves is kind of up on this thing. It's not here. Well, you can't. Yeah, that doesn't actually do anything when you do a triple thing on the extension. That's a little bit unexpected. A partial member. Wait, why did it? Oh, that's interesting too. Wait, now I'm really confused. How did this even work? This is a partial class with that target site, which is called here, but there's no implementation of it. Huh. Why is that? I guess we just never used it, so we don't have to make that partial. A partial member must be declared within a partial type. Print stack trace. Yeah, nothing fails. That is weird. That's an odd one. Like I never finished this, which is no big deal because I don't know if anybody ever used it. I'm going to put in another issue. Actually, let's not do that. Let's keep them in. There are two partial methods in this class, but they do nothing. Maybe they should? This is almost a bug. Like, why did I have two extension methods or two methods in there that don't do anything? Okay, well, leave it as is. You know, I'm not really that hot to trot on changing everything to extension here. I mean, there's definitely some value to it, but you end up losing let's undo the changes on these. Okay. And that's funny. We never had any comments to this. Okay, so we're no longer using that. I don't know. I don't know. Adds key value pairs to param self. Type of the key. The type of the value. The dictionary to add pairs to. The pairs to add to self. Doesn't return anything, but then we're going to throw an exception. Or is, and now there's a keyword here. No. Lang word. No. And I actually want to find these because yeah, there's a lot of them. We want to replace that. C lang word, not world, is equal to null. There. nothing fails. What we could actually do is say, yeah, use that syntax. That's better. I like that. So this has quickly become a actually what we could do is just find ampersand less than. No, not percent. And just change all those. It just looks better. This is that scene that's in Malcolm in the Middle, where his dad needs to like fix a drawer, and then trying to fix the drawer notices that it's like notices something else is broken, so then just going to fix that, and then notices he's missing something, so then he's going to do that, and by the time his wife comes home, he's outside in the garage like doing something to the car. She's like, what do you, oh, he's trying to change a light bulb, I think. She's like, what are you doing? He goes, I'm trying to change a light bulb, can't you see that? I just saw it too, that they're doing some reunion for show thing too. I'm like, really? But they got all of the original cast, I think, to come back for that, which is quite surprising. Walter. Okay. No more. So we got that all updated. A little nice little clean thing for the here's another one. C lang word true. We want to change that to true. And then if we have false, we want to change that to false. That's better too. This is making me think that I don't know how you would do that, but in my Transpire library, if I could go through and look through XML comments to see if you're like using false or true or keywords that you could actually use that. That might be really hard to do. But I'm going to write that down just as, again, as a thought. Could I do some transform in Transpire to change XML comments from something like range ampersand less than t ampersand greater than t, or that, to range of t, or c null, or that was a bold that I was doing. to C lang word equals null. It would be a small one, but that'd be kind of interesting to explore that. Explore the studio space, as it were. Okay. So little cleanups, little small things, but they're all they're nice. Just little dabs. Little dabs. And then maybe I could finally get to what it is that I was actually trying to do. See, like here, we want to change that to true. And then if we have false, I think that's much better because that'll show up better too when you're doing help stuff. So I like it. Again, this is not like hugely complicated rocket science stuff, but it's just these little things that make a library a little nicer. Now, why do I have this? That should be up in here. It's a breaking change, but it should just be in extensions. I always just put things in extensions there. And like I don't put these into their own namespaces, which maybe I should, but is what it is. Secure random should go away. Oh, but now I have it. Yeah, that's right. I did change it to wrapping or taking a random number generator. And not trying to use random, because random is just a bad type to use at this point. So there are some things in this type that are kind of nice to have, though arguably having this be a class that you can extend is kind of ridiculous, because the only thing it's doing is their extension methods on a random number generator, right? So why don't I just make it an extension method? Okay, so that's another thing. Change secure random to be extension methods on random number generator. At this point, secure random doesn't do anything by itself. It's all based on the random number generator instance. So why not change this to be extension methods? That would be a breaking change, but we're going to be doing a 14.0 release anyway, so I kind of like that. I kind of like making this a a class of extension methods, because then we don't have to worry. Because the thing that started making me think about that was the fact that we're using dispose here. But when you're given something that's disposable, are you responsible for disposing it? In a dependency injection mindset, no, you shouldn't, because the thing that's injecting it into you is responsible then, because it could be handing it off to other things. If you dispose it, you could be breaking other people. But all these things are really just, you know, like there's some things here, get big integer with range, that are kind of nice. Getting a big integer, saying here's the number of digits, and I had this whole thing in here to make it so you get a big integer. You could get byte values, which I'm not sure if this generator get bytes. Fills a span. Yeah, so there is already a way to do that now. But what we add on top of it is a way to say, how do you want to do the value generation? Do you want to do unique values only? Or if you do duplicates allowed, then we just use the get bytes method that's currently there. Get double values. So there's an X double, but if you look at this generator, there's no way to get a double value. So we have an X double. We could say change it to next. Like get a Boolean, get bytes, get a double. Which is weird. I mean, getting a random double value is really difficult in the sense of, you know, I might want to clean that up too. So I think it's time to, get rid of this and change this and make these all extension methods that you can use on random number generator. So there's a big integer, you say, I want to get the number of bytes, number of digits. And then we have a range and also range. That might be, because we could have just get big integer saying max, min, max, and then also the number of digits. Yeah, I like that idea. I like that. I think that cleans up a bunch of stuff with this that we just don't need anymore, and that becomes a what did I change on this? Back that out. I don't want to do whatever I did on this. Oh, I do want to change, yeah. Crap. See lang word. No. Okay, I think we cleared that up enough. Okay, so we can include that with the changes that we want to do. And then that's just part of that. So so we have just it's turning into a bunch of extension methods, but we do have, again, this one time. I don't know why I have event tags. Isn't there a generic version of event tags already in system.event? There's an event handler that's generic, but so we keep that in there, even though it's kind of used. This range type, though, it's always nice to have this thing around. I've always found this to be very, very helpful as its own type. All right, so did we even ever get to what I was trying to do? Create that. Which is adding a range on hash set. I never even got around to doing that. Let's just say hash set extensions. I kind of like that. I kind of like just saying name for the extensions without the generic, because I think that, you know, the generics become part of the definition, especially with the new syntax. It's just the extension syntax, I think, needs a little bit of work. So we could change all these. And then we want to cut that and put it into here, and then delete that. So like it's like you go into an attic and you got to clean everything out. That's kind of what I've been doing for the last half an hour, just getting rid of the cobwebs, you know. And then this would go away. These two would go away. Yeah, I like that. I like that idea. Much, much better. Okay, so we never got around to doing this. I'm going to probably stop it pretty soon. But yeah, we never actually got around to doing this one. Cleaning out the cobwebs with renames and all, with renames, things like renames. There. Okay, so when I get back, and probably on Friday morning, I will be doing another Random Code stream, and maybe Saturday and Sunday morning as well. We'll see. But I'll actually get to what I was really supposed to be doing, which is this, which hopefully shouldn't take that long at all. But it was a little discouraging that some of the things with XML comments and extension just they don't work, and there's no real easy way to specify that. How do you say that now in an extension method? That's something I want to mull over, because it's a small thing, but it's an interesting thing in my head to do. So in any event, I'm going to stop the stream here. This was a fun one to end Random Code on for 2025. And I will be continuing the work on this library when I get back. It's always fun when you revisit something. You always find a bunch of things that you can go, hey, maybe I could do this a little bit better. And that's really one of the reasons I have these libraries out there. It's good fodder for me to keep looking at and going, how can I improve this? How can I make it better? What's shown up in a new version of .NET or C# that I can use? Does it break anything? Does it, you know, what are some of the things that don't quite work really well? So I'll be continuing this when I get back from my little trip. But I want to thank everybody who's been watching either now or in the future. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I would appreciate that. Again, the next time I stream will probably be Thursday afternoon. I'll be doing Halo Infinite again. And the next time I do a Random Code stream will be Friday morning. And I'll be continuing with this work. But for now, I'm going to end this stream. Thank you all for watching. Take care, and I hope to see you in the future.